Hey friends, thanks for joining me, Jim Baroud, to hear a few insights from leaders who represent our innovation ecosystem. Today's chat is with Lisa Rice, the CEO of the National Fair Housing Alliance, and Michael Akinwumi, the Chief AI Officer of the National Fair Housing Alliance and a Rita Allen Fellow.
Hi, Jim. My name is Lisa Rice, and I'm the president and CEO of the National Fair Housing Alliance.
Excellent. And Michael?
Hey Jim, my name is Michael Akinwumi. I'm the Chief AI Officer for the National Fair Housing Alliance. So I lead the responsible AI effort at the organization.
Wonderful. Okay, so that is an important organization that most people, maybe not a lot of people don't know all you do. So I will make sure we discuss that. But first, I want to understand where you came from. How did you get to where you are today? Lisa, let's start with you. Tell us about high school and take us from there.
Oh, wow. Well, I got my start in fair housing while I was in high school. Believe it or not, I was 15 years old when I was able to land an internship at the Toledo Fair Housing Center, that is a civil rights agency in Toledo, Ohio. And I was in a program that is called Upward Bound. I don't know if your viewership is familiar with that program, but it provides mentorship opportunities to high school students. And my first internship was at the Toledo Fair Housing Center. I was a legal researcher, and this was in the days before computers were prominent in offices. I won't quite say how long ago this was, but you can imagine it was a long time ago.
Got it.
And so I spent my days literally in stacks of books piled, sky high in legal libraries researching civil rights cases.
Wow. Okay. And so then after that, how did you get to where you are now?
Well, I really got bit, I would say, by the fair housing bug. I had been intrigued about civil rights issues since I was a little girl. Both of my parents grew up in the Jim Crow South. My parents, had they stayed in the South, would not have been able to vote um, um, for probably by the time they turned 18 until the passage of the Voting Rights Act, they would have lived for over 20 years without having the right to vote. So Dr. King was assassinated when I was 5 years old. I remember that very clearly. So civil rights has always been a part of our household, fighting for justice, fighting for righteousness. Uh, I would say that that was very much a part of who I was, the values that my family held. So when I got this internship at the Fair Housing Center, it just was fascinating to me that this little group of civil rights experts were changing the world. Literally, they were launching investigations and bringing lawsuits and getting great decisions, establishing new precedents in the law. The Toledo Fair Housing Center investigated the nation's first sexual harassment case under the Fair Housing Act and litigated the first case establishing the precedent that sexual harassment in housing is covered by the Fair Housing Act. They litigated some of the first fair lending cases and fair insurance cases. So it really just was an amazing way to feel like you were a part of the solution.
Wow. Okay. Got it. Michael, tell us how you came to, you know, um, Lisa's organization, or tell us, take us back to high school first.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's a good question. So what I know is that when I was in high school, I was really considered to be a social critic. Those days, almost every week, I would have a cartoon or a write-up trying to criticize any event that is really happening either on school campus or in the society. And at the same time, I was really gifted in math. And there were a lot of instances where I came across what we call applied math problems. There will be problems where you have to solve in medicine, in engineering, but I knew that I had a passion for problems that relate to the society. In fact, right from high school, there were days that I would spend nights trying to solve applied problems that relate to societal issues. And when the time came for me to go to the university, having had a taste of poverty, I was really looking for opportunities to escape poverty. And then a lot of my friends were going into computing science. And the university that accepted me did not have a computer science program, but they had mathematical sciences program, which was a combination of three things: computer science, math, and statistics. Knowing that, I really had like a special gift for math, well, I decided to accept to go and do mathematical sciences. But my interest was in computer science because I thought that would be my sure way out of poverty. Until my second year, I happened to take a statistics course. I will never forget. It was called Statistical Inference. And I even took like the second part, Statistical Inference 2. And I had access to social data, building statistical models to address social I just told myself that I'm no longer doing computer science or even statistics. I'll just focus on those types of applied problems. So fast forward to going to Europe to do my grad studies and also Canada, where I focused on applied math. But the experience that I got while I was doing my undergrad stayed with me, and even after my PhD, I kept looking for opportunities to apply math to social problems. My first breakthrough came working with medical doctors, where, I had the privilege of, applying math to the risk of cancer in infants. And then going through the data, working with medical doctors, I began to see that we need to look beyond the data and focus on the stories behind the data. So I told myself, the reason I decided to do PhD was because I wanted to be a university lecturer. So I said, well, I'll go to the industry and make sure that I actually carry that opportunity forward. So fast forward to working in insurance company, I developed some models that opened my eyes to how what we call objective math could unintentionally limit access to insurance, both auto and property. So from there, I decided, well, I really want to be part of the solution. Working in banking, on credit scoring solutions, I experienced the same thing, and so I sought for an opportunity to work for a fintech where the CEO of that fintech, who is still a very good friend of mine now, actually gave me the freedom to set up what I'll call the equivalent of like Gov Engineering Lab. And so I was working with engineers, I was working with business people, trying to innovate and see how we can make sure that machine learning solutions they are addressing social inequities and inequalities. And I happened to attend a conference where, an event where I presented some of the findings from my work. And I guess somebody just found, so the event was recorded, posted on YouTube and also on LinkedIn. And somebody found that on LinkedIn, and it happened that the National Fair Housing Alliance was having a conference around the COVID time. That was 2020, right? So I sat on a panel put together by the National Fair Housing Alliance. I think it says something like the code in the engine. I've forgotten the title, but after, there are some times that you realize the moment that this is the organization you want to be part of. So on that panel, the conversations that I have myself, that this is the organization I really want to be part of. Then an opportunity opened, a position opened up. I applied, I was interviewed, and I guess the rest is the history now.
Wow, that's impressive. So, Lisa, let's go back to you. How long has the Fair Housing Alliance been in place? And then I know you worked in Toledo for a similar organization. Then you rose the ranks, I guess. Tell us about give some history and your sort of rise in that organization.
Sure, Jim. Well, the National Fair Housing Alliance started in 1989. At the time, there was no national organization trying to bring together and coalesce fair housing groups that existed across the country. There had been a national fair housing organization, but it went defunct. And so two regional groups, the California Fair Housing Alliance and the Midwest Fair Housing Alliance, of which the Toledo Fair Housing Center was a part, merged. Those two regional fair housing alliances merged to form the National Fair Housing Alliance. And my mentor, my shero, Shauna Smith, who had was the first executive director and founder of the Toledo Fair Housing Center, she became the first CEO of the National Fair Housing Alliance. She really was the impetus. She was just a driving force behind the development of this organization. And she had been asking me to leave Toledo and follow her to Washington, D.C. for many years. I didn't go, quite frankly, Jim, because we were working on a number of really important and significant insurance redlining cases. And I wanted to see those cases through to the end. And once we had litigated a number of them, then I felt comfortable enough to leave Toledo, and I joined the team here in Washington, D.C. That was right before the COVID. I'm sorry, right before the foreclosure crisis hit. And I told myself we had been very successful in passing anti-predatory lending legislation at the state level in Ohio. So I fancied myself being able to somehow leveraged that into passing a national law, came here to Washington, D.C., and quickly discovered, Jim, things work very differently here in D.C. We didn't get the law passed, as you might have surmised, hence the foreclosure crisis and the Great Recession. But of course, in the aftermath of the Great Recession, we were able to get anti-predatory lending uh, legislation passed in the form of the Dodd-Frank Act.
Got it. And tell us about, for those people not familiar with the Fair Housing Alliance, I think you guys do a lot, but give us sort of a concise mission and some of the programs that you have.
Sure. So our mission is to eliminate all forms of housing discrimination. And as you mentioned, Jim, that's extremely broad because housing runs the gamut, right? The Fair Housing Act covers trying to rent housing, trying to purchase a house, trying to get insurance for a house,
The,
appraising a house, getting a loan that is secured by a residential property. So it's very, very broad. There are a gazillion technologies that are used in the housing and lending and insurance spaces. And the fair housing laws can be used to address all of those technologies. We work on policy issues, we do enforcement. So we investigate claims of discrimination. So let me do say this because the way we handle fair housing issues today has morphed. It has morphed over time. So before the 1970s, the way we handled fair housing issues, by and large, was as mediators, sort of like an orchestrator. So fair housing professionals would pull together what are called straw man deals. Because in those days, Jim, it was very common for people to have racially restrictive covenants put in place. And a racially restrictive covenant is a covenant that essentially says, if you're Jewish or if you're Black or if you're um, Asian, you can't live in this particular neighborhood. And so what we would do is we would find a white person who would be willing to purchase the home on behalf of somebody who was Black or Latino or Jewish or whatever the case may be. The white family or person would purchase the house and then turn around and immediately sell it to the Black person to sort of break or violate the racially restrictive covenant or any other kind of apartheid law that had been put in place. Uh, so that was a lot of the work that was done. And if you've ever heard Senator Cory Booker tell the story of his working with a fair housing professional by the name of Lee Porter, who put together the straw man deal so his family could purchase what was the home that he grew up in New Jersey. But after the passage of the Fair Housing Act around 1970, the Fair Housing Act was passed in 1968. The Fair Housing Act was passed in 1968, just 7 days after the assassination of Dr. King. It was meant to be a gift to the King family, uh, but the law didn't go in effect until 1969. So we're really talking about 1970 for all intents and purposes. At that time, we could use the law to enforce fair housing rights for people. So we began conducting investigations, going undercover, using mystery shoppers or testers to ferret out whether or not discrimination was happening. And we have all kinds of investigative tools today, some of them thanks to Michael. We'll talk about that, I think, a little later. We have some more sophisticated tools that we can use today. But we do a lot of investigative work and we bring lawsuits. So we advance the law that way. We do a lot of educational, not just for the public, but for governmental agencies and for consumers. And then, of course, we have the responsible AI team. We do a lot of development. So we engage in housing and community development activities. So we do a lot of work to advance fair housing on multiple fronts.
Okay, so Michael, tell us how the impact you've made with all your tech background after you've come to the Fair Housing Alliance.
Yeah, no, in terms of impact, I remember when we started, we actually started as a tech on making sure that algorithmic systems that are being used for underwriting or credit scoring are developed in a way or manner that is fair. And when we started then, we're thinking, I think the size of the organization was probably 25 or thereabout. And we quickly learned that if we want to truly constrain machine learning systems to be fair, we need to be looking at some other areas, including privacy, including governance, including transparency, explainability, like five or so different pillars, right? And the more you think about expanding the scope of the issue areas, you need more hands on deck. I wish, I could clone myself, or there are some digital twins that I could use, right? And As we grow in size, of course, we also need to grow our communications. One major impact, again, is really increasing the size of the organization to make sure that the issues that are coming at the forefront of AI use in housing were up to speed when it comes to addressing them. Like one of the things I learned from Lisa is that technology, including AI, is the new civil and human rights. The more we dig into the frontiers, the more we realize that there is more for us to do. So, but in terms of like material impacts that are actually helping advance responsible AI across the country, so we've published a widely used response to a request for information on AI. And in fact, based on the feedback we've received, many of the tech companies that are developing these solutions, they are looking up to NAFA for AI policy recommendations, many of which are outlined in some of the AI policy work we've done. And we've also published a gold standard framework that companies are using to audit their algorithmic systems. We call it Purpose, Process, and Monitoring Framework. We also contributed to the previous administration's effort on AI. For example, the White House, the previous administration's AI Bill of Rights, the previous administration's executive order on AI. We played key roles in making sure that those executive orders, including the ones that were designed to power data centers, they are centered around civil rights and also human rights. And even like, so we have two signature events, the hackathon and also the symposium. And about 3 years ago, when Lisa asked me to come up with a roadmap for the team, I was thinking about what would our AI literacy effort look like? Because one thing is to do research in the lab, and another thing is to make it accessible to fair housing or civil rights advocates. So what we thought of was that we need to have signature events that draw in people to learn more about findings from our work. So our first AI symposium, which was organized January last year, it was hugely successful, well attended across all sectors, industry, civil society, and then also from government agencies as well. And we had over, I think, 200 in attendance, and noting that that was our inaugural event. And let me tell you one thing. So when we had the event, the plan was to make it a biannual event. And because of the sources, the overwhelming feedback that we got was that waiting for 2 years before we have another symposium is really so. Almost everyone that provided feedback was asking for it to be an annual event, and the event we're having this year, April 28 to 38, is all saying that we're listening to those who attended last year's event. And another impact that I've been able to make is the hackathon. So one of the things we learned when it comes to responsible development of AI in housing is that it's very important that we have diverse data. We also have diverse developers because it is the diversity that helps people to really understand how these AI systems impact different communities in different ways. We also realize that for us to improve diversity of those who are developing these solutions, we need to have an event to source for talent across the country. So based on that, we had our first hackathon, which was hugely successful. And we're also having another one this year. But I like to say that this wouldn't have been possible if I'm not lucky to have a leader that actually gives me the space to be creative. When I was sharing with you earlier on about going to the industry, insurance to banking and all that, right? There's so much you could do when it comes to innovating from inside out, but the impact we've been able to make as a team, I would say, is really due to the fact that I'm fortunate to have a leader in Lisa that provides a conducive environment to dream, to also create.
And that's really exciting. But when you talk about the hackathon, what are some of the sort of ventures or ideas that really impressed you in the past, and what are you looking forward to this year?
Oh yeah, sure. So in the past, what we worked on was we really wanted to understand how to address the issue of algorithmic bias, which appraiser bias that the National Fair Housing Alliance has, worked on over the decades, and there are industry players that are using machine learning to develop or to evaluate our own property. So our first inaugural hackathon was focused on one, how to understand the issues in the systems, the algorithmic systems, and also policy recommendations for um, fixing those issues. And we're able to have like different teams that worked on that, making sure that our policy recommendations are effective enough to mitigate the appraiser bias issues. Now, given the current administration, especially some of the changes that are coming as a result of the Department of Government Agents, the Department of Government Efficiency going into housing and urban development, making sure that some data are taken offline. And right now, one thing we know is that even if the viewers go on our website, 90% of the contents that were available in the previous administration are no longer there. Not only that, anyone that really wants to file a housing complaint now is the only option they have, except if they have some form of disabilities, is really going online and submitting their claims online and without anybody even responding to them. So what we're really looking forward to in the upcoming hackathon later in the year is how can we leverage agentic AI to make sure that the barrier, the digital barrier between those who experience housing discrimination and looking for a way to share that experience with government agencies, especially housing and urban development department. How can agentic AI help them to speed up that process of filing their complaint or making their complaint known? And again, this will require working with fair housing agencies across the country, and we are also looking forward to making sure that the use of generative AI systems for describing real estate properties are free of racial steering and also racial bias. And this is really an active research that we're working on now. So generative AI using real estate property description and also leveraging agentic AI to improve the experience of those who have experienced housing discrimination are the two areas we are looking forward to addressing in the upcoming hackathon.
Great. And we'll have a link to that event in the show notes. It's not too late for entrepreneurs to apply to pitch, correct?
Yeah, no, it's not too late. In fact, we encourage entrepreneurs that are looking to innovate in the civic tech space to be part of the event because there are a lot of opportunities there for them to work on.
Got it. And we're thinking about this, right? We always talk about the downside of AI, right? The negatives, but when we talk about AI for good, this is a clear illustration of how AI for good could really be very effective against discrimination. Is that right? So this is a really great use case. No?
Yeah, no, that's absolutely right. And in addition to agentic AI use or even generative AI use, one well-known area is alternative credit scoring. And in fact, that's one of the areas where that actually drew me to housing system and finance system, where machine learning has been shown to have the capacity to leverage or identify new signals in alternative data. And it's really a good test bed for innovators who are looking to break through into responsible use of AI in housing and lending.
That's great. That's great to hear. So, Lisa, I know you're excited about this symposium coming up because it's a really great way to leverage technology, right? To really help further the goals of the alliance. So, Lisa, tell us what you're excited about with the symposium coming up.
Well, Jim, the symposium is an opportunity. It's a unique opportunity to bring together industry, government, and civil society to discuss and advance responsible AI in our nation. So we're bringing together. It's a unusual event in that it's probably the only event where we're bringing together technologists, so data scientists and engineers, software developers, along with government, so academicians, legislators, and then civil society, civil rights groups, and consumer protection groups, all to come together sort of intersectionally to lift up the challenges that we're seeing with the use of AI, as well as solutions for using AI. So it's really a great event. And as Michael alluded to earlier, when we held our inaugural event last year, we got so much positive feedback that folks said, no, this is something that you need to do every single year since AI is developing so rapidly. So we're bringing together some of the nation's leaders in each one of these areas. So, for example, in the area of civil rights, we've got Maya Wiley, who is the president and CEO of the Leadership Conference on Civil and Human Rights. We have the ACLU, we have Unidos US. Of course, we've got our own folks at NAFA and many other civil and human rights organizations. When it comes to the area of government, we've got leaders in that area too. For example, Superintendent Adrian Harris will be joining us from the state of New York. We have leaders in government from California, from Virginia, and other areas who will be talking about both their legislative initiatives around governing AI as well as their enforcement measures for making sure that there is compliance with state statutes. And one of the things that we noticed, and in fact, Michael shared this with me, I didn't even know it, but several years ago, there were hardly any state proposals for legislating AI, and now there are over 600. The number is probably much higher than that, quite frankly, today. So states are really stepping up in terms of governance in this area. And then, of course, we have leaders in technology. We've got Tara Lyons from JPMorgan Chase. We have Amy Gromowski from CoreLogic. We've got leaders from Citigroup and from many other organizations that are leading the way in not only developing AI, but also implementing AI from a technological perspective. So it's going to be a great convening. We're really looking forward to it.
That's exciting. That's really an impressive symposium you guys are hosting. So we usually, you know, end with sort of some tips, right? So let's talk about tips for professionals who want to leverage AI responsibly from whatever sector they're in. Lisa?
So my tip would be to not just get training on AI, but to also get training on civil rights issues and for people to make sure they understand what is driving the inequities in our society. What's driving the outcomes that decisioning algorithm is making. So understand how those technologies can even sometimes resolve the disparities that we're seeing in our society and those innate challenges that exist because of systemic barriers that may be in place.
Got it. Michael?
And I'll follow up on Lisa's tip. About a week ago, specifically on April 7th, the White House Office of Management and Budget issued a memorandum on federal AI use for innovation, governance, and public trust. And it's interesting that housing, including insurance and also credit, are identified as high impact AI application areas. And there is a requirement for strong oversight for civil rights, civil liberties, and privacy in such high impact area. So anyone who is really interested in learning about how civil rights, civil liberties, and privacy can be translated into math and codes in AI systems that are being used in housing should continue to look up to the National Fair Housing Alliance for directions and also join us at the symposium that we have coming up on the on April 28th to 30th later in the month.
Great. And I'm sure we're gonna that topic is gonna be discussed extensively. So it's gonna be a great conference. Let's get one more tip. One tip for entrepreneurs who are looking to sort of start a new venture in the housing or prop tech sector.
My tip for anybody who's developing technologies in the housing or financial services sector is to really think intersectionally and to get insights, not just from the data, but also get insights from the consumers that you're building the technology for.
Great. Michael?
And my tip is that as we know, the future is still emerging. But if the past 5 years is indicating what the future is going to look like, I would say that those who strive to balance innovation with regulation would eventually benefit from the emerging landscape of AI technologies.
Excellent. Thanks for those tips. We usually end, this has been a great conversation, but we usually end with a poem or a quote or a saying that's meaningful to you. Lisa, what do you have for us?
So this poem by Maya Angelou that she wrote is titled Still I Rise. I'm not going to go through the whole poem, but I'll just quote a few sections of it. You may write me down in history with your bitter, twisted lies. You may trod me in the dirt, but still, like dust, I rise. Did you want to see me broken? Bowed head and lowered eyes, shoulders falling down like teardrops, weakened by my soulful cries, weakened by my soulful cries. You may shoot me with your words, you may cut me with your eyes, you may kill me with your hatefulness, but still, like air, I'll rise. Out of the huts of history's shame, I rise up from a past that's rooted in pain, I rise. I am a black ocean leaping and wide, welling and swelling. I bear in the tide, leaving behind nights of terror and fear. I rise into a daybreak that's wondrously clear. I rise, bringing the gifts that my ancestors gave. I am the dream and the hope of the slave. I rise, I rise, I rise.
I love that. Michael, I don't know how you're going to outdo that one, but good luck.
No, well, it's actually not in my place to try to outdo Lisa. But whenever I'm asked to provide an inspiring quote, I always struggle between choosing, Dr. Martin Luther King's quote and Albert Einstein's quote. When I was in high school, I having had the privilege of being a son of a pastor. I learned a lot about Dr. King, and I never even knew that I'll be part of advancing or contributing to the civil rights movement or the work based on my technical abilities. But at the same time, knowing that most of what I do right now are guided by my own personal philosophy, which is based on my favorite Albert Einstein quote. What I would say is I'll end with the quote that says, "A life lived for others is truly worth living." And with that, I hope at least the viewers would consider whatever they're doing, whatever they're doing with their hands, with their minds, choosing to continue to live for others. Because I strongly believe that that is the only life that is worth living.
That's great. This has been a great conversation. Thank you so much, both of you. Thanks for joining us. I hope you enjoyed the show. Please like it, leave a review, and subscribe. See you soon.